Hey ladies, just a heads up. This episode features a candid and compassionate conversation about the painful realities of pregnancy loss, including descriptions that some listeners may find graphic or disturbing. We do advise listener discretion. At the same time, however, we hope this conversation brings comfort and peace in the midst of pain and grief. You're listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin.
I'm Bree.
And I'm Rachel.
We have a one-question interview today. It has been a while since we've had a one-question interview. Erin's one-question interview. It's been a while since we've had another lady in the Ladies Lounge, which we also have today. And this is October. This episode will be dropping on October 1st. Lord willing. October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, and October 15th is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day. So we wanted to take some time on this podcast to bring a lady into the Ladies Lounge who has experienced this and share some consolation. And I know a lot of ladies in our Facebook group and also listeners of the podcast have also experienced pregnancy and infant loss. So we wanted to create a space on the podcast to talk about this very openly and candidly and honestly. So you also may want to grab some tissues. This may be a tissue level episode. So Erin, take it away. Introduce our guest.
Okay, well, today we have Liz Entenmann, who is a Lutheran lady. She is not claiming any other special expertise here.
Nope,
just the
special.
sisterhood. Exactly. The fellow sister Lutheran lady joining us.
One of us.
Yeah.
Hello. I really
Hello.
appreciate being able to come on and have the space to highlight something that many women have gone through and share my story.
Excellent. Well, these one question interviews, we always start with one question, and that pretty much just opens it wide, although there's a fair chance that at some point a second question will be asked. But we don't rely on that second question to see us through. So here's our one question today. What should Lutheran women know about pregnancy loss and miscarriage that we just don't talk about?
It's funny because when I was sent the question, I was like, oh, I feel like I've been talking about it for so long that I was like, what have I not talked? Like, what is there that's not being, said? And I reached out to some of my awesome Lutheran ladies. I have my own little core group. And I said, what I want to say is that we don't talk much about it. And I was like, how does that hit you? And they're like, we think you're right. And that was my initial response is that we don't talk much about it. There's something that because of it, women keep it very close to the chest. And I feel that a lot of women do that because of shame and guilt. They feel like they failed, their body failed. And so it's hard to admit failure, right? When you fail at doing something. And so I think it's a hard thing to open up about. But I found in my experiences that when I've become more open about it, there is a large community of women that share the same grief and burdens that you have walked through or walking through. And there is a sisterhood there that is comforting and helpful. So it's something that I really appreciate having this space to bring it more to light and to tell women to be open with your loss. If you can, if that's safe for you. I understand that some people just can't do that, or at least have somebody that is a good friend to share that loss with, so you're not carrying that burden alone. And the second part of that is that women carry this grief, but our husbands, our men also carry the grief, but in a much different way. And I think sometimes they get forgotten. because it is the women who are the ones going through it, right? They're the ones they're the ones who see the line. And from that moment, their life changes forever. And they're the ones that keep it close to go, I know it's early, so I can't tell anybody because I don't want to, it's early. I don't want to say, oh, I lost the baby, right? But our husbands, they grieve too. And I think sometimes that gets lost in our grief. And definitely in my story, that's one of the things that I've had a difficult time with is acknowledging my husband's grief, because I've been so much in grief and going, he's grieving too, and respecting his space and his time to process.
That's an excellent point. I want to pause here for a moment. You and I are old friends.
Yeah.
And so I'm very familiar with your story, and I really appreciate you sharing it on social media the way you have, but a lot of our listeners are not. If you could, would you tell us about your beautiful family and about the joys and griefs that you have experienced as a mother?
Well, I have a 12-year-old son and a 6-year-old, soon to be 7-year-old daughter. And I had a miscarriage after her. She was 9 months when I got pregnant with we called a baby E. And I went in for my 12-week appointment, and I hadn't had any ultrasounds before that. And there was no heartbeat. But they told me at the time that it was just a clump of cells. It wasn't a formed body. And they think it was a molar pregnancy, which molar pregnancies are kind of like flukes, and a cellular clump that just kind of forms and the body thinks it's pregnant. And so when I lost that baby, it was a loss, but it wasn't like, I was like, okay, it wasn't a baby, like I detached myself from that, and I was able to, I grieved, but it wasn't deep. It was just, okay, it was just my body fluking. And then I got pregnant with my third, and he is 3, soon to be 4. And my husband left when he was 3 months old. We are military. So he deployed for a year when my youngest was 3, and that was the hardest year of my life. But when he came home, I tell you all this because 2 days after he came home, I got into a near fatal car accident, and I almost died. I cracked 2 vertebrae in my neck and broke 4 ribs and punctured a lung.
Oh my goodness.
And if the car would have been any higher hitting my car, my whole body probably would have been crushed. So we were in a military, like he was supposed to be home for 2 weeks, and he was leaving to go to the next duty station, and we were going to follow 3 months later. And I was in an accident. There was no place we could go, and I couldn't drive because I was in a neck brace, and I was in a neck brace for 5 months. So thankfully, the Army granted us a compassionate reassignment. We got back on our feet. And as soon as I was back to normal, I got pregnant again, just like that. And I went, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Well, okay, that's fine. My husband's like, hey, baby, let's go. And he's like, what's another one? Let's just, yeah. But then he's like, oh my gosh, what did we do? It's that roller coaster of, this is fantastic. Oh my gosh, another one. 4. What are we going to do with 4 kids? And I lost Remy. I felt like it was a girl. And at the time, I was about 7 weeks pregnant. And I went to Hope Pregnancy Center. They were having this teaching thing for nurses and helpers that help at the Hope Pregnancy Center to do ultrasound. So they were looking for volunteers. And so I was like, I'll volunteer, it's and so at 6 weeks, my baby was living. She had a heartbeat, and I got an ultrasound picture of her. But then when I went to my 12-week ultrasound, there was no heartbeat. And that loss was very hard on me, and not just hard emotionally, but physically. My body went through severe trauma. And I should have gone to the ER, but with my first miscarriage and how I was treated in the ER, I refused to go. And so it was a horrible night. And I got up to go to the bathroom. And when I got up, I could see my baby.
Oh, no.
And so I scooped her out because I couldn't flush her. That was my precious life. And I put her in a little cup. And I said, I don't know what to do. I looked at my husband and I said, I don't know what to do. What do we do? And he said, I'll take care of her. And so he took her. And it was a night of, like, my body was just retching the life that was inside me. It was uncontrollable. And by the morning, I was so like sick and just, I couldn't move. And my husband was getting really weird. I said, Liz, I think you need to go to I think you need to go to the doctor. I really think we need to take you to the ER. You've lost too much blood. And I said, no. And so he's trying to get me to eat something. And I said, no. I'm not hungry. He's like, I'll go to Starbucks. All these things. And I said, you know what? It really sounds good right now. I said, a donut. And he said, a donut. Okay, I'll run to Krispy Kreme and I'll get a donut. And he literally went to the bedroom to put on clothes, and the doorbell rang. And it was a Wednesday, because the Tuesday before was my Bible study ladies, and I had told them that there was no heartbeat. And that morning, and the doorbell was one of my friends at the door with a box of Krispy Kreme donuts. It was like, I was like, Lord, I don't know what is going on, but thank you so much. And she's like, I just had to bring you donuts. I don't know why. I woke up and I said, I need to bring Liz donuts. And it was like the most moment, like a shining moment in that grief. And so, when people say that early on that it's just a clump of cells, I held my 11-week, 12-week-old baby in my hand. And I could see her little nubs of fingers and toes and arms. And I could see you cannot tell me that it's just a clump of cells. So that's my experience with that end of things. And so that was in October of 2018.
I was going to say, was it last October?
Yeah, no, October 2018. And then in February of 2020, before everything got a little crazy, I found out I was pregnant again. And I've never been on birth control, and it's never been a choice of mine. I never liked the idea of hormones or anything like that. So, and after I lost Remy, and I think some women really, maybe I'm speaking from my own personal experience, but after a loss, being intimate with my husband is just a very difficult thing. And so it was just one time. It was just one time. And that's all it takes is one time. And I said, there's no way I'm pregnant again. And sure enough, I was pregnant again. And I said, okay, this one's going to be a sticker. I know it. But the problem with getting pregnant so quickly after losing, I called her Remy, was I was so burdened with fear that it plagued my entire pregnancy. It just weighed on me. And then the pandemic hit and everything changed and all that fear. And I was in a panic every day. I thought I was losing the baby, and every checkup, I couldn't wait to get every checkup. And everything was textbook. Everything was great. All my tests were fine. And all the doctor's appointments were, stressful, because it was like, where am I going now? Like, things were changing, and masks and all the crazy things. And my husband couldn't come with me. So it was a very weird pregnancy for him too, because he really was like not a part of the journey. He wasn't at doctor's appointments. He didn't go to ultrasounds because he couldn't. And so for him, it was like, all right, baby number 4, all right, we'll deal with baby number 4 when we get there. Right. And everything was fine until August 31st. And my due date was October 22nd, which was the day I lost Remy. So it was like, oh man, like, what's the coincidence of that? Like, how crazy is it that, this baby's due date was the day that I lost Remy? And I was like, well, that's just, that's special. And what a way to celebrate, his, well, I didn't know, we didn't find out genders. What a way to celebrate a life with having another life. And so I got up in the middle of the night and I had to go to the bathroom, and I laid back down, and I always fell asleep feeling the baby, and I didn't feel anything. And I said, okay, that's weird. And I was like, okay, baby, come on. I need you to move so mom can go back to sleep. And nothing. And so all of a sudden my mom, Dar, was like, okay, this is weird. And so I sat up and I got out of the kitchen and I drank some more water, nothing. And I was like, okay, maybe I need a little sugar. So I drank some juice and walked around, rocked in the seat. I'm like, okay, baby, I need you to move for mommy. I need you to move. I need to feel you move. And so I'm watching the clock. Okay, it's been 45 minutes. I wake up my husband and I said, I need to go to labor and delivery right now. And he's like, why? I'm like, I haven't felt the baby move. And I just don't feel good about it. He's like, okay, go. And so I got there, and the nurse was like, I'm calmly trying to tell her. And she kind of had like okay, mom, like, how many weeks are you? I'm 32 weeks. Yikes. Okay. Well, they say after 20 weeks, go to labor and delivery if there's any, you don't feel baby movement, fetal movement in over an hour. And so she got out the Doppler and she's moving it around and she's finding my heartbeat and she's finding my heartbeat. She's like, well, don't worry, mom. This is normal. Baby's probably in a weird position. And I was like, it's been almost 2 hours and I haven't felt my baby move. This is not normal. And then she called the doctor in with the ultrasound, and silence. And I said, can you tell me something? And he said, I'm sorry, there's no cardiac activity. So at that moment, coincidentally, my husband called me and he's like, what is happening? Because he'd been texting me and I had nothing to text back. And so I had to tell him that our baby was dead. And that was just awful. And so he said, well, it's, and so it was all the things of, okay, what do we do now? Well, we need to get a second opinion. So you need to come back after radiology is open to get a second opinion. Okay. So I go back home. Thankfully, I only lived like 10 minutes away from the hospital, and I came back home. And at this point, it's like 5:30 in the morning. And so I'm exhausted. I'm shell-shocked, and I just want to sit in the chair and just cry. And I walk in. Well, I come around the corner and I see my house is lit up. And I'm like, what is going on? I walk in and all 3 of my babies are on the knees on the couch. And I was like, why are the children awake? And he's like, I can't do this on my own. They have to pray for a miracle with me. I cannot do this on my own. And I'm like, but why are they awake? And
oh my gosh.
And they're there in sleep going, they're like this, and they're looking at me and they're so confused. And I was like, and
Mom, what's happening?
And I mean, in hindsight, my husband and seeing what, like him teaching his children, like, this is what we do. We get on our knees and we pray. This, to me, it's just so valuable in a father.
What a beautiful reaction, too, for him to just be like, can't do it. I need prayer.
I can't do this on my own.
Yes.
Yeah. And what a night he had waiting with his phone, waiting for you to text him, and just laying there in silence and in darkness and in fear. And of course he woke the children up.
Yeah. And anyway, so then, if we just sat and we waited until, and he was just like on my stomach, and he's just like, baby, I need you. I need you. Come on, God, just please. And I was just like, no, it's over. Like I was already defeated because, and since I was panicked every day, my husband finally got to the point where he's like, that's enough, Liz. We're not going to panic. And he wrote in big letters on the wall, October 18th. That's the day we're having the baby. That's the day to focus on. And that's what we're going to do. So I had that little October 18th, like, okay, he wrote it on our bedroom wall and marker. And so I just kept thinking about, we didn't make it to October 18th. We didn't make it. We didn't make it. How did we not make it? I just had an appointment. Like the baby was fine. What happened? Like what happened? So then it was when I went back and they took a second ultrasound and they can't tell you anything when you're in the ultrasound room because procedure, whatever. But when I left, she said, I'm so sorry. And I said, okay, that was it. And then it was just kind of notifying people that needed to know and just kind of, okay, what do we do from now? And they're like, well, we need to, whenever you're ready to come to the hospital, we'll do induction. Since you've had babies before, then that's the natural way to go about it. So we'll have to induce you. And so then it was just finding people to take the children. And so once the children are out of the house, then I was like, then the gravity of the situation, like I have to give birth. I have to give birth. And I don't know how I can do this. Like my body's not ready. But we're like, how is this going to happen? So we got to the hospital and they went through the procedures and, we did it overnight and after the first day. So it was a Monday I went in and on Tuesday, I didn't have any, there was really no progression. And they were drugging me to kind of relax me because I wasn't sleeping. And this is the part where it was difficult, where my husband was like inconsolable. Like nurses tried to talk to him and he just sat in the corner. He was just inconsolable. And it was hard for me because I was like, do you not understand what I have to do right now? Yeah. Do you not understand? I can't just grieve my baby. I just can't do that. I have to like do this. I have to push this baby out. And so that was really hard for me to be understanding of him. It was just a really difficult moment. And then people coming in and out and just going through the whole thing of, we're so sorry and, checking. And because, when you're pregnant and you've had babies, all the cervical checking that they do and everything like that is just so comfortable and easy that
yeah, so comfortable. Yes,
so comfortable. Having to deal with that constantly, going, okay, are there any changes? No, there's no changes. Okay, well, we'll up the Pitocin and we'll do this. And so finally, by night 2, it was like 2 a.m. I was like, I've had it. This is enough. I am done. This something needs to happen. They're like, well, do you need an epidural? I'm like, I didn't have an epidural with the married babies. I don't need an epidural for this baby. Something needs to happen. So I unplugged my IV cord and I'm walking the little 15 feet of my hospital room back and forth going, okay, God, this needs to happen. We need to move this baby. This just come on, Lord. We need to do this now. Because the other thing was I was just missing my babies. I was missing my children. Like, I was like, I just can't be away from them anymore. Like, I need to be with them. And so I'm like, I need to move this bus. Finally, by like, I don't know, 4 a.m., I'd been walking for a couple hours. So I was like, hey, what do you do when you have a baby, Liz? You know what to do when you have a baby. Like, don't just lay in the bed, like, do something. So I had them check and I had gotten to like 6 centimeters. And the problem is that the baby was feet down. So since his head wasn't there to help push the cervix open, it made it a little bit more difficult to reach my cervix opening. And so finally I broke like at 4:30 and I begged the nurse to bring the doctor. And I said, please just take me to the OR. I can't do this anymore. I can't. I thought I could do it. I'm a fighter, but what I know is going to happen at the end, I don't have the strength for. I don't. And she's like, I know it's hard, but I just need you to try a little bit longer. It's going to be so much better for you in the end to heal and recover if you have this baby naturally. And I hated her in that moment. I was so angry. I wanted her to take it away. I wanted her to knock me out and be done with it. Now I'm grateful because, dealing with a major surgery afterward would have been a whole lot more to deal with. And so I said, okay, I need an epidural. I can't deal with this pain anymore. Like contractions were getting stronger. And it was when they were prepping me for the epidural. I got this huge contraction and I said, no, that's it. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Right. I'm having this baby right now. And they said, oh, okay. And I said, yep, I'm having the baby right now. The baby's coming. The baby's coming. And so Rob was there, my husband, and he was on one side and he said like, he couldn't believe how clear I was in the moment. But once I pushed the baby's feet out, he said he could have punched the doctor in the face because she said it's a boy. And he said he felt the life go out of me. He just like, you were just gone. And the feet came out and I still had the shoulders and the head. And so it took a lot for me, but finally. And so in the whole time I was like, what do I do? Like what when you have a baby, you put that baby on your chest and it's like, but I was like, do I want to hold the baby? Do I want I was so torn as to what to do in that moment. But as soon as she had the baby out, she said, do you want to hold him? And I said, absolutely. I want to see my baby. And he was 5 pounds, 5 ounces and 18 inches long. He was a baby. He was a big boy for 32 weeks and he was perfect. And so the story doesn't end there because my placenta didn't want to detach. And when you are pregnant with a live baby, they have a 30-minute window they want you to get the placenta out. But when you birth a dead baby, time doesn't matter. And so while I'm holding my baby, there, those wonderful uterus massages after you have a baby to make sure your uterus is contracting.
I know. The last thing you want is someone like poking you down there, but they're just like kneading your belly.
Yeah.
And you're like,
and so
go away.
They're rubbing and rubbing and rubbing and rubbing and rubbing, trying to detach the placenta. And so the umbilical cord is, they're like kind of tugging on the umbilical cord and rubbing and rubbing and rubbing and rubbing and rubbing. And then I'd be like, okay, that's it. Give me a break. I need a minute. And so they'd leave and they'd come back like in 30 minutes. And so for 4 hours,
oh my Lord,
they tried to detach my placenta, Rocky's placenta. We named him Rockford Graham. And so our little Rocky, he was going to be our last little fighter. But anyway, so finally there was a ship change and the one doctor's like, your cervix is still so open. And I think if we do a spinal tap, I can reach in there and I can scoop the placenta out. She's like, my hand's small enough. I think I can do that. And I was like, could we not have done this 4 hours ago? And so I could just, be with my baby instead of dealing with you monkeys up in my business. And so
I don't mean to laugh, but it's like,
no, well,
I mean, really.
Once you have a baby, you lose a little humility because it's just like, well,
you really do.
You're on the world for display and it's just like, okay, let's move this story along. So anyways, she did. I had a spinal tap, but the awesome thing. And this is COVID time. All right. This is September at the height of like lockdowns and craziness. So there's masks and, my children couldn't come in and And so there was a chaplain that he came to visit, and he, bless his heart, he was the most awkward man I have ever encountered. And so before I had the baby, like I'm laying in the bed and my face is swollen and I'm just like, and he comes in and he's like, I'm really sorry. And if there's anything that we can do, just let us know. And I was like, okay. And he's like, for those who can't see me, long pause, stare, awkward, leaning in, not really saying anything, but just looking at you very intensely, like, okay, maybe
it's a
she'll say
chaplain
something.
thing. It's like I think it's called practicing a ministry of presence. You're just there.
Awful. And so finally, after and then so I was like, I was looking at my husband, and he was, and so I was looking at my husband, and he was looking at me. We're both in this like awkward, like, what is he doing? Look at each other, like, okay, what? And so finally, I was like, thank you so much, chaplain, for coming in and seeing us. We really appreciate your visit, and if we need anything, we'll let you know. And he's like, okay, well, just, like he was like relieved, like, okay, I don't have to stand here awkwardly and look at you anymore. Great.
For future reference, there are two things. If a hospital chaplain comes to visit you, you say, thank you for coming. Can you get me a Bible? And can you call my pastor?
Well, I told you this to tell you this. So the nurse was like, do you want me to call the chaplain? And both my husband were like, no. And she was like, okay. And we're like, he was just really awkward and we just don't need that. And she's like, do you have a pastor? And we're like, yes, we do. And she's like, let me talk to the head of the hospital, whatever, and let me see if I can get him in here for you guys. And we were like, that would be perfect.
Yes.
So our pastor got to come and see us and give us communion in the hospital room. And he said, because he had called me the night before, whatever, and talked to him for a little bit. And then he texted and Rob texted him back. And then Rob texted him and said, hey, could you come and see us? He's like, I'll be right there. And normally I was delivering on an army post. And so since he's not military, he has to go through the guest services, whatever. And he's like, normally any other day, there's a line of people there waiting to get their, sheet of paper to get on post. He's like, and there was nobody there. He's like, so that's why I'm a little early because, we were expecting him at a certain time and he was there like 20 minutes earlier. And he's like, because there was just nobody there. I did not expect, no line. And so we got to have a good time with him in the hospital and he, prayed for us and we got to have communion. And that was really, because he was the only one that got to see Rocky. Our children didn't get to see him. So that was special. But I do have to say, like, the nurses and the staff there were great. I've heard of some people having some experiences and stuff like that, but I was grateful for my nurses that took care of me. And there's a company organization called Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep. And it's a photographer company that goes and takes pictures of families and babies that either have passed or have hours to live. And my nurse was like, we can't get a photographer in here, but she's like, I took an online class and I'm going to take some pictures for you. Because there was a lot of like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Do you want to dress the baby? Do you want to put a diaper on the baby? Do you want to do all the things? And there were some things I'm like, it's just so much to process. And no, I was like, no, you could take pictures. And it was and there was one moment, like I had been holding him for a couple hours and she brought in a bed and she's like, this is a cooling bed. And so this is so, the baby can stay in here with you. And I was like, a cooling bed? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, can I hold him or does his body have to be, cooled? Because I just didn't want to feel him cold. And she's like, no, honey, you can hold him as long as you want. You can hold him as long as you want. But if you need a break, he can be there. And that way, he doesn't have to go to the morgue. And that was something like, a family who had gone through a loss like ours. They had donated the cooling bed to the hospital in honor of their baby. So in that moment, there was like, well, there was a connection to somebody else who knows our loss, and that they donated that in memory of their child, which I thought was, I don't know, in a way special in that moment. But we decided that we weren't going to have anybody take him anywhere. He was going to be in our possession. So we had to sign paperwork to take him out of the hospital to transport human remains. So we took him to the funeral home and we did our last duty as his. So that's my family. That was a really long answer to the question, but a little bit of our story too is that now it's been a little bit over a year since we've lost Rocky. What a year in the world, and what a year for us, but that's our story.
There's so much beauty in this story. As much as there was loss, there are these little glimpses of beauty that I'm glad you described. And I guess I think we can really just go off book at this point.
Go for it.
So it's been over a year since you've lost Rocky, and taking all of your experiences into consideration in terms of motherhood, how have you found healing?
I found healing in celebrating life and looking to God's truth, because the world wants me to look at what I've lost and wants me to scream and yell and fight and get angry. But I can't do that because I know there's hope and there's future. I can't look backward at what I've lost because what I've lost isn't there anymore. He's ahead. Rocky and my other children are in heaven. And I look forward to that. And that's what keeps me going, are the promises that I have through resurrection. But with that, I choose to celebrate life. Sometimes it's painful because there's still that ache. I have babies around me that are pretty much the exact ages of every single one of my losses. And that's what happened to baby E. Was my doctor who had me when I delivered Rocky. She's like, I went back into your files. And this was like, I don't know, 6 or so weeks after I had Rocky. And she's like, I'm calling you to let you know I went back in your files, and that pregnancy that they told you was a molar pregnancy was not a molar pregnancy. And I was like, what? And she's like, no, whoever told you that told you a lie. In your files, it clearly states human remains.
Oh my goodness.
So it was like, it was a baby. And so it kind of made that loss a little fresh again for me in the moment of my grief. But I was so grateful for that doctor to, and so she's like, I'm telling you, because molar pregnancy can be something that can lean towards cancer in the future, or be, like red flags for cancer issues. And you've never had a molar pregnancy, so you don't have to have that concern. And so I said, oh, okay, that's good to know. But at the same time, I was like, wow. But so I have people around me, children of friends who have had babies at those stages where I could see, where my child would be, right now in life. And I had one of my best friends, she was due a week before me. And so I had that dream of being pregnant with one of your best friends and having babies like days apart, and such a beautiful thing. So after she had him, which was a little over a month after I had Rocky, I said, I have to go hold this baby now. I have to. And she's like, yeah, sure, you definitely. And so I drove several hours to get to her house, and just feeling that life just like healed something broken inside me. And from that moment on, I said, I am not gonna death, oh, where is thy sting?
Amen.
No.
Amen.
No, I'm
Yeah.
going to celebrate life and love life and those babies that come into this world. So
Yes.
They are.
they truly are. There are times when I'm in a moment and it's too much for me. And like, I have to leave. I get a little emotional
Mhm.
because when I see a chunky baby, it's like, oh man, because I have some chunky babies and it's just like that hurt just kind of flares up. But it's something that, that life speaks to me and it tells me, life wants to steal these things away from me, but it's God's truth. It's the light and the darkness that sets me back on the path to what I have to look forward to. Because there's no shadow of turning in him. There's no darkness when the truth stands because it shines that light on the darkness.
Yeah. You've mentioned the people that have surrounded you.
Mm-hmm.
How has this community been important to you? And how have people, like, what's been encouraging from the people around you in your life, especially for us, understanding most of us probably know several women just like in real person, real life, who have experienced this. What is encouraging from the people around you that have been able to bring you this comfort and joy, even through so much grief?
Well, one of the best gifts that I have, and I think being in the Lutheran world and being one of the Lutheran ladies, I think everyone knows who Katie Schuerman is.
Mhm.
And about 6 years ago, we have a Bible study group in our church. We did her Pew Sisters book,
Mhm.
and we just consumed that book and we loved that as a group. And I love our group because we have, older ladies in their, retirement, old generation, and we have young 20-some-year-old mothers in our group. And it's just this beautiful group of women of all ages and stages that come together and share God's word. And so since that book, we called ourselves the Pew Sisters. And so we'll be like, okay, Pew Sisters, I need help. Or Pew Sisters, we have somebody who needs our help. And so I have this amazing group of women in our church that are mothers, grandmothers, sisters. And I feel like I've gone through so much trauma in the last few years, but they have just been at my door with meals or, yep, I'll come pick up the kids. And so I'm so grateful that, I've put myself in a position to be a part of a community that has allowed me to openly grieve and let me grieve. I think one of the biggest problems that some people have is they want to put a timeline on grief and be like, oh, you should be over this by now.
Yeah, no,
And
it doesn't work that way.
no, absolutely not. Like the moment you see that line, that a woman sees that line, her whole world changes. You see the future, you like everything shifts. Okay, I'm gonna need this, I'm gonna need that. Like in that moment, like, oh, that super highway brain just is lit up. And
You mean like the line on a pregnancy test? Is that what you're talking about?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I was like, the line.
Yeah.
I haven't had kids yet, so I wasn't sure what the line is. I was like, am I going to wake up and there's going to be a line and I'm going to be like, I'm pregnant.
Yeah, in the sky. Yeah,
that hasn't happened yet.
Or the plus or the pregnant, thing. It changes. And so, nobody may not have known that baby, but you saw the future. And that is something that you can definitely grieve for as long as you want.
Yes.
And it takes people different times. And I honestly think that if it weren't for my faith, I would be in a lot different position than I am right now. And that's something that I've done in this last year is I really have dove into God's promises and what he has for me. When I was in the hospital, there is a song, one of my favorite Christian artist groups is Selah. And and they have a song called Audrey's Song. I probably listened to that song the entire time I was in the hospital. It was just on repeat on my phone. And one of the men from Selah, his wife was pregnant and they were told that the baby was going to die. Like if it it would live for a couple hours.
Mhm.
And so he wrote the song. And the song is called I Will Carry You. And it's a beautiful song about, who could love this baby more than I do? All the things that you wanted to do as a mother. And it's the parallel of, but God saying, but I love her more.
Mhm.
I will take care of her. I will show her the things and I will carry you, because the song is I will carry you. So I will carry this baby. And then God's like, but I will carry you for as long as your heart beats here. And so there's a line in it, and I will praise the one who's chosen me to carry you. And that was my focus, is that I will praise God for choosing me to carry this life. If my purpose was to birth this baby into heaven, that is what God has chosen me to do. And I will praise him for it.
Mhm.
That's beautiful.
And that's where I keep on, because life wants to press on me, and this world wants to, scream at me for what I've lost. But I haven't truly lost anything, because it's coming.
Yeah.
I will be reunited.
Yes, you will.
Yeah, I think for everyone else, aside from the mother, I mean, and yes, dads are there all the way. They're cradling you as you're cradling the baby and feeling the kicks on the outside. But you, as the mother, you're the one who knows the
Yeah.
child. And so for everyone else, it's a bit of a hypothetical until the time comes. But for you, it's not. I mean, I know that this is a weird question, probably, but can you tell us about Rocky? What was he like?
I knew he was a boy.
Yeah.
I don't know how I knew. And we didn't find out. Like, we never found out with any of our children before, because my husband would always say, gender reveal parties. We'll have a gender reveal party. It's going to be in the delivery room. That's where our gender reveal party is going to be.
It's a lot safer. You just set fewer forest fires that way.
Right.
Yeah,
Correct.
exactly, right? Or fewer mistakes, because there have been people who have been like, oh, wait a second. And
This confetti is yellow. What does that mean?
I don't know. It's something that I think he would have been his big brother's shadow. From the pictures that we do have, he looks so much like my 3-year-old. The nose, the lips, the chin. It is uncanny. Every single time I look at my son, I go, man, they would have been twins. And it would have just been awesome. But he was just a tight little ball in my tummy that loved to kick my hips.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how all babies you can tell their personalities just from the way they move around inside? That between my oldest and my second oldest, night and day difference.
Do they have the spots to kick places in there?
Oh, yeah. A lot of people always complain about babies being in the ribs, but I have a long torso. And so my babies would always kick my hips, never in my ribs. And that day, I remember before he died, I was so cranky because that baby just did not give my bladder a break. And I was like, are you kidding? Just please, mommy just needs to sleep. Just, during the day. It was after church because it was a Sunday. And I was like, mommy just needs to sleep. But I think he was definitely and that's what really gave me the red flag, is that he was such an active baby that I knew something was amiss right away.
Yeah. Yeah, I had one who 2 hours without moving, no problem whatsoever. That's just normal, but your baby.
Yeah.
So for those of us who have not known motherhood yet, what is your preferred way of us sort of trying to respond in situations that you've been in, or showing support or just being present or whatever?
Expanding the question to someone who is a mother, when someone has gone through a miscarriage or pregnancy loss, and I'm speaking very personally, and she gave me permission to share this, but my sister has had 2 miscarriages this year, including one just a few weeks ago. And I love her so much, and I am so sad. I'm so broken up about this, but I don't know what to say, what to do, how to show her that love. And it's not something that we're sharing broadly. I mean, obviously this is very broad, but
Yeah.
but my kids don't know, and nor will they probably, because it's a private pain. It's not for many miscarriages. No one outside the immediate family ever knows.
Yeah.
But how do you comfort people in that situation?
Well, what not to do is
That's probably a better question.
Yeah, let's go with what not to do first, because I feel like there's lots of pitfalls.
I definitely am not in the camp of, we'll haven't earned another angel, because I know that baby's not an angel.
Check.
Correct.
It's very Lutheran of you.
Right.
That's good.
And sometimes, I mean, like I've had, it's nice to think about, because my dad passed 7 years ago, and it's nice to think my baby's up there with my dad. But it's a reality that I don't know. It's not like he's up there, on Papa, and but it's nice to think that sometimes.
I'm imagining that scene from Cinderella, where the king is fantasizing about romping with little grandbabies.
Yes.
Or, you're young, you'll try again. Or, those things, people do say. And even for me, for the months after Rocky, even people just saying, how are you? And that how are you I knew it was loaded. It was loaded with, I don't know what else to say, but I'm going to say, how are you? Because I don't know what else to say. Sometimes it was just like, because, and so sometimes I'm just like, I think, and it's different for everybody. Like, I cannot speak to anybody else's grief, and I am just here to share what I've gone through. But sometimes I would have just preferred them saying, I know, and I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do for you today? Instead of going, how are you? Because like, how are you? I'm going to respond, I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm not going to just lay out the truth.
Like, do you really want to know how I am? Do you
want
want to have 3 hours?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you.
And so, but by saying, I know, and I'm so sorry, sets a different tone to, okay, maybe I can share a little bit. Because it's like, just the how are you? Like, I dreaded them asking me, how are you? Because I was not okay. I'm not okay. And it's hard, because that's what you normally say when you greet people, right?
But it's not a discussion that you want to have with just some
like everybody,
like rando. You know what I mean? Like,
no. And that's the thing, like, random people, like, how are you? But it was people that knew me and knew what I was going through. And so the how are you was like, it was, how are you?
Oh,
like, okay.
I don't know you well enough to be vulnerable with you.
Yeah. Right. But just letting them grieve, letting them talk about it. And for me, like, people, they've made donations to certain things saying, we've done that. But I think one of the best things to do if you have somebody going through this is to do something by saying, okay, I'm going to pick up your kids. When is a good time for you? I think you need some alone time, because 9 times out of 10, if you say, okay, if you need anything, just let me know. She's not going to say anything. Because she's just going to charge right through and do what she needs to do to get the day done. By forcing a hand in a way, and saying, okay, I'm going to pick up the kids this day, or what day works for you? I want to do this for you. Or we're going to, like, my friends are like, okay, we're starting a meal train. What's good for you? Well, this. Okay. And I have some amazing friends who were just like, they are, at the door with, paper plates and spoons and bowls. So the dishes don't have to be worried about,
Oh, that's brilliant.
Right? Yes. And things like that. Like, I don't even like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't even thought of that. Yes. But yeah, like when you're in this moment, like just thinking about doing the dishes, when you have 3 kids around you, is a little much. Right. And so I've had moments of that where my friends have just done for me. And that has been the best thing, is like, showing up with donuts at the door and just sending me flowers, or just doing stuff without asking, I think has been one of the brighter moments for me in helping carry me, like them helping to carry me through this without me going, okay, I really need you to do this for me because I'm having a hard time right now. And just kind of taking action for them in a capacity like, okay, you know what, let's go out for coffee, or I'm going to bring you coffee, or, something they like to do. I think that's really helpful for somebody.
Are there any things that congregations that your church can do? So friends, close family, that's one group. But
Right.
have you experienced it, or do you have any thoughts on ways that the larger congregation could actually care for women and families who are going through this?
Yeah. Outside of my Bible study group, we as a group bought a couple of little statues. One is like a hand with a little baby in it. And the other one is the Good Shepherd statue with, Jesus with a child on his shoulder and children around him. And we have like a little meditation garden in the center of our church. And they're there, as a memorial for babies that were lost. And so that was a very, generous gesture that our church had done. But I thought about this and I was like, organizing, a walk or having like a team because there's a lot of walks that happen during October, and maybe a church, organizing that to remember, or doing, a name release, or having a memorial just service, I think would be something touching for women to go to. Because when Remy died, my husband had packaged her up in a little cardboard box, and we burned her in our fireplace and kept the ashes. And so we had our own little private service because nobody really knew I was pregnant with Remy. And we went to our Lutheran Book of Prayer, and there is no prayer in the Lutheran Book of Prayer for infant loss or miscarriage. And we just couldn't believe it in that moment. We were like, really? And so, but we had our own little service and sang a hymn, and we did that to honor our baby. And so having a dedicated service for infant loss, I think would be very special, because even now I have a lot of guilt. We didn't have a service for Rocky just because it was September and then October. And it was like, things were just weird with churches, and it's just like
COVID.
Yeah, COVID just kind of ruined everything. And then it just seemed like it was like Christmas and it was too late. And I was like, well, maybe, next year when, it says heavenly birthday, maybe we'll do a service, and that's come and gone. But I think having like a special memorial service to do something for moms because and that's been another thing, is I have some really good friends who have walked pretty much the same path I have, who have lost infants either hours after they gave birth, or, in utero, like me. And so I don't want to say like any kind of loss is horrible, and having going through both, there is a difference. For me, losing Remy was horrible in my other miscarriage, but Rocky was just a completely different level, physically, mentally, emotionally, because at 32 weeks, like, he had his life suit on, like he was meant for Earth. And seeing that body was just like, how is that possible to not have him be here? So it's a more, to me, it was just a completely different loss to process. But having women who walked through it and seeing where they are now, one of the best gifts I got was a teddy bear that weighs 5 pounds, 5 ounces. Because she's like, after her son died, she's like, your arms ache. You just want something to hold. And it's true, because I woke up for months hearing baby cries. Like my body would wake up and I would be hearing a baby. And even afterwards, like when I was as far as long as I was, and my body went through the motions of having birth, like my milk came in and so I was in a chair with like ice packs and saran wrap wrapped around me and just like trying to be like, okay, please, I don't want to deal with any kind of infection. Just like, please let me get through this. So that was, I dealt with that too afterwards. Like, it wasn't like it was just, okay, I had the baby. No,
I didn't want to ask about that, but I wanted to ask about that.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have been a really brutal moment
Oh,
because you can feel it.
Oh yeah.
It's a moment. It comes.
Yeah. And I mean, it was just like painful and like, okay, dealing with, healing after the birth. But it was like, I had Rocky. And the one thing I wish I would have taken more time in the hospital. I had him at like 6:19 a.m. and I was walking out of the hospital at 5:45 p.m.
Wow.
I should not have been walking. And I was driving the next day. I should not have been driving, but I was just like so determined to, all right, I have to just get back to normal. And I wish I would have had some people around me to kind of slow me down in a way of like, because that morning I went to the hospital. We were supposed to start homeschool.
Oh.
So I just had that constant, like, okay, we're too far behind. We need to get going. We need to. And so I was like, nope, we just need to keep this ball rolling because I don't have time to just let go and let everything, heal. I have to get back to normal. And I think some women probably do that. And so it might be good to be like, I think you just need to slow down a little bit.
Well,
We've basically gone through the motions of having a baby, but without all of the joy and happiness that comes from it.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about the emotional and the spiritual trauma involved in this, but it's a physical trauma as well. And that's true whenever you lose a pregnancy, that your body is traumatized for a while. Mm-hmm. It takes time to heal. It may happen in a moment, but it's, weeks before you're even approaching normal again. And that's another private pain that people don't see. And so they can't help you with unless you tell them.
Yeah. So that's why, like, hey, I'm going to pick up the kids, is Monday a good day? I'm going to take them out all day, something like that. Or I want to come over and clean the house for you, get dirty dishes or do the laundry. I remember when I was pregnant, I had a friend come over and I had a really hard pregnancy with my third. And it was when my husband he was gone. He was gone for most of my third pregnancy. And I was just tired, 2 kids. And somebody just came over and she's like, oh, you got a basket of clothes over there. I'm going to fold them. And I was like, no. She's like, no, I'm going to fold them. And I sat there and I was talking to her. And as she's folding clothes, I just dozed off. And she folded clothes. She put them away. And then she took care of the kids. And it was just like, so having friends who are just going to like, I'm not going to wait for you to tell me what to do. I know what I need to do. Like that is such a gift for going through moments like that.
Yeah. I think that's a huge encouragement to all of us. Because I mean, if you're a good enough friend, you're going to know when your friends are hurting, right?
Right.
And to just have that encouragement and that little kick in the pants to be like, be that friend, even if you're an introvert and you feel uncomfortable, like just go and help people. Like we carry each other's burdens. We walk alongside our sisters. Yeah. That's what we're called to do. Yeah. Just go do it. They won't hate you for it.
No. Anyone wants to do that.
Unless you're going to go over and just practice a ministry of presence, like the husband chaplain.
Like the chaplain.
Just sit there and look at you.
Bless his heart.
Bless his heart.
You mentioned the teddy bear, and I know a few of my friends who have miscarried have also received those teddy bears, and they're beautiful. Are there other ways that you celebrate those lives, or that the friends around you celebrate lives?
I've seen several ways. I was really torn with Rocky and what to do because we know he died on August 31st, but I gave birth on September 2nd. And finally it was like a couple weeks before August 31st, we were driving in the car, my husband and I said, he's like, what is going on with you? And I'm like, I just don't know what to do. And he's like, what are you talking about? And there are times like through this grief process, like I said, I'm more visual. And so I think he's just, he's put it in a box, he's put it away, and, he's done with it. And I wonder, does he even care? Like I have it, like, do you even care sometimes? But then when I come to him with a problem, like sometimes he just has the best advice. And I'm like, why don't I just come to you right away? Why do I sit on this stuff? Why am I such a silly wife sometimes? And so I said, I don't know what to do. And I told him, like, I don't know what to honor the 31st, because we know he died and that's when his soul, left his body. But I had him on the second, and he's like, well, why don't we just honor all three? Our son deserves no less. And I was like, okay. So for that, I fasted for 3 days because in my mind, I was like, I am not going to cling to the things of this world. I will cling to Jesus because that is my hope and my promise. And so I made it 60 hours. I didn't make it 72, but I made it 60 hours. By the third day, we were running around doing errands, and all of a sudden I was like, ooh, I don't think mommy's going to make it another 12 hours. Mommy needs a little food in her tummy. So, but it was really good. Like it brought some clarity. I think fasting is something that needs to be practiced a little bit more, because I think it really, I don't know. I can't really articulate my full experience on that, but I really had some blessings through fasting those couple days. But I had a candle, and I lit a candle for him, and we talked about Rocky, and we talked about the other losses as a family. But I know some people who they get like a cupcake every year and they sing happy birthday. I know some people donate diapers and things to places like pregnancy crisis centers. Or I know somebody who they got like onesies for all the babies that were born in the hospital on the day that said blessed, with a little note of, congratulations. And this is from in memory of our baby that we didn't get to take home. So, I mean, there really is, like, when I first was going through it, I was like, oh, there's nothing out there, but there really is a lot of resources out there of things to do for people, or even like, I can't remember the website right now, but they have like kits of, if your friend is going through a miscarriage, things to have to bring to the house, as she's going through it. And little care packages. And like, I'm like, I had no idea these resources were out there, but you don't know if you're not looking, right?
Right.
And there's a ton of stuff out there to help somebody. But I mean, I've gotten so many wonderful gifts of a plaque with his name, his name says Rocky, but the inside are the lyrics of Rock of Ages, that you can read, and the teddy bear and Christmas ornaments with his name on it. And I've gotten a necklace with all of my children's name on it, and a keychain with all of my children's names on it. So it's very generous of people to go out of their way to think about me, but it's nice to have those things that have all of their names on it.
Yeah.
Because every day, I think about all my children.
Yeah.
Every day.
You're their mother.
Yeah.
You're going to.
I know we can probably keep going for a while, but we're at an hour 20.
I don't think it could get any more beautiful than we've already had. So
yeah, this was really good. And Liz, I'm so grateful that you came on today, and we all got to be open and vulnerable together. And you are just such a brave soul. And I love that you, and I'm probably speaking for everyone here, but I'm so glad you took the time to sit down and tell your story with us, because I think it's going to resonate with a lot of listeners, and they're all going to appreciate the time you took.
Yes.
It's kind of ironic because, like I mentioned before, janitor extraordinaire, I I was cleaning the church sanctuary and I was listening to a Lutheran Ladies Lounge, and I don't remember which one it was. And I was laughing in the sanctuary, and I was just like, it would be so stinking fun to be on a podcast with those ladies.
It is a pretty good time usually.
Right? It might have been the one about the Hymnopalooza with What is the Spread? I think.
Yes.
What is this? Bread?
and I was just like, oh my gosh. And then it was just a couple of days later that I got a message from Rachel saying, hey, we would like you to be on our podcast. And I was like, oh, okay, that's amazing. I feel so absolutely honored, but not the fun that I, not, but still.
We'll have to have you back sometime when we're cooking things.
You're always welcome on the sofa for sure. Anytime you wish to come back.
But I am so absolutely grateful to be able to share Rocky's story. I had no idea what would, I was like, Lord, I know you're going to use this for something. I just don't know what. Mm-hmm. And when this happened, I had to think about it. But I was like, I feel like this is, his story to share and to hopefully help women who are in some darkness to shed some light and to tell them that, the world wants to tell you that they are just a clump of cells, but celebrate that life, share that life when with somebody. So when you are grieving and you are like, if it is early, you can say it is early, but if you are going through that pain, that you are not going through that alone.
Yeah.
And you have that support, but to celebrate that life, because that is precious. And the world wants to press on us and just tell us that it's not important when it is. And it is something you can grieve and celebrate.
Yeah. It's a life.
Yeah, it is.
It's your baby. And it's okay to grieve. Thank you for just reminding us all of that.
So I would like to close with the last verse of Children of the Heavenly Father, which was also
why?
Again.
Oh no. Hold on.
Okay, there's
actually the last two verses, right?
We just recorded another podcast episode 2 days ago, and we sang this hymn, and Rachel was in tears. So now we're all going to be in tears
because it's good.
Oh, it's so good, and it's a hymn I've had memorized forever. But this was also like when the pastor came and gave us communion when he came to visit us. Like I just said, I kept on thinking of these last two verses. So that neither life nor death shall ever from the Lord his children sever. Unto them his grace he showeth, and their sorrows all he knoweth. Though he giveth or he taketh, God his children ne'er forsaketh. His the loving purpose solely to preserve them pure and holy.
Amen. And I'm crying. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Again.
I know my baby's in heaven, and I will see him and them again someday.
So and I cannot wait to meet Rocky. Right? And Remy and baby E, and it's gonna just
all
be
the babies.
An awesome
all the
jam.
Babies. Yeah.
Wait.
A high five, Jesus. Yeah.
Yes. Jumping high five.
Well, my son did say, he's like, we're talking about children. And I said, well, I've learned something from all my children. And he's like, well, what did you learn from me? And I said, I learned to love. I was like, when I had you, I had no idea the capacity I had to love. And you taught me to love. And he's like, well, what did you learn from Addie? And I said, I learned patience. That girl, oh, man. She has tried my patience.
Kind of girl.
And he's like, well, what about Richard? And I said, oh, joy. I learned joy from Richard after I lost that first baby. I learned ultimate joy. And he's like, well, what about Rocky? And I said, I learned to look forward to heaven. Because I said, I don't want you to be sad when I die. I said, I want you to tell people my mom's high-fiving Jesus and he's with her and she's with her other babies. And he got teary-eyed. And I said, but that's our promise, baby. That's our promise. That is our reward. This world, we don't belong to this world. We belong with Christ. So don't be sad when I die.
Well, we can
be maybe be a little sad.
Yeah.
It's a good Lutheran thing to be both and sad and joyful at the same time. And I think anybody who has experienced any kind of a loss of a loved one will fully understand that.
Of course.
I mean, this is hitting, it was my father-in-law, a week ago. So not a baby.
Yeah.
But I mean, what you're saying is resonating with me, even though it's a different situation.
Yeah.
Blessed in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints.
Amen.
So I'm so thankful for our hymnody and for our pastors who bring communion in hospitals.
Nurses that take online photography classes.
Nurses that take online. Liz, thank you so much for being our guest. I know this wasn't our usual crazy, happy, laughing for an hour episode, but this is laughs. So good. This is very cathartic, and I'm so glad we had this space to have you on and to have this discussion and hopefully bring some community and peace to a lot of women who have experienced what you've experienced, because I know it's a lot more common than we probably know. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate the platform.
Ladies, if you aren't in our Facebook group yet, be sure to join us there. I'm sure we'll have discussions about pregnancy and infant loss during the month of October. If you want to share your story in the Facebook group and share in that community, please do. We would love to have some love amongst our sisters in the Facebook group this month. So
much love.
So join us there, Lutheran Ladies Lounge on Facebook. We're also on Instagram at Lutheran Ladies Lounge. If you want to share your story on there as well and tag us, we'll share those stories in our story. You can find all of our podcasts at kfuo.org/Lutheran Ladies Lounge or on your favorite podcasting app. You're listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin.
I'm going to bring you donuts if you're sad or grieving, but just know there's going to be a couple bites taken out of one of them.
And I'm Rachel.
Views and opinions expressed on the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast may not represent the official position of the management or ownership of KFUO Radio, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. The Lutheran Ladies Lounge is produced by KFUO Radio and available at kfuo.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Join our community on Facebook in the Lutheran Ladies Lounge.